Hello, my awesome project managers. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Harnessing AI for PM Productivity. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I know lots of you are about tapping out. Lots of you are probably about going to bed in the United States, but those of you in Middle East, Asia, Pacific, Europe, you might just be still going to gear two of sleep or waking up, whichever one. But welcome. Today, we are going to explore how to harness AI for PM productivity. We're going to talk about plans, project documents, VDOs, PMOs, communities of practice, centers of excellence. I will endeavor to make this as short as possible. So let's jump straight into our talk for today. For those new to project management, we define project management as applying our knowledge and skills to get our projects completed successfully so that we can reap the benefits of them, so that we can realize the outcome that we were seeking to in the very beginning. But in order to do that, there's certain things that will help us as project managers. And one of the things that helps project managers, especially those who are new to project management, is some measure of structure, some measure of order, some measure of process. So coming into project management for the very first time, there's certain guardrails that could help, certain things that we should put in place. And that's what brings the talk about PMOs, project management offices, value delivery office, community of practices, centers of excellence. So a very quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today is how do we bring structure, some order, some process, and some support to help project managers think about why we do this. Why do we want to implement a project management office? Why do we want to implement a value delivery office versus a PMO or a community of practice or center of excellence? Many organizations have a couple of these at different levels, different divisions, if you will. But I like what the PMI did, the Project Management Institute, with their PMP exam, because the PMP exam breakdown is threefold. And if you take a look at these three things, you understand why we are doing what we're doing. There's a reason why we do what we do as PMOs, as VDOs, or whatever the model. It's three things. Boils down to people, help people, get people to their optimum potential as project managers, process, optimize the process, get the process to its optimum state, and have a Kaizen mindset to go to the next level. And it's business. Who doesn't want to be big and successful in business? Pretty much every organization you meet has an aspiration, a goal. And when we talk about success in business, it's your people and process that get you there. So when you help your project managers by building some structure, some order, some process around them, when you come alongside them as a servant leader, you're helping them. And the process gets better because they understand the process and there's some deliberateness in the process when it's done well. So that is a high level view of what we're going into pretty quick today, if I might add. So let's jump straight into chapter one, the evolution of the PMO. PMOs have been around for a while, all right? If you do a quick search, you'll find that it's the late 1930s, right? Initially conceived as a central hub. There were some departments in the agricultural world affiliated with government where this term originated from. But PMOs have grown in leaps and bounds. At first, it started off as being more of a governance structure. And as time went on, leading up to 2024, a lot of companies are moving away from PMOs. Why is that? Because PMOs have received a bad rap. As you can see on the slide here, the PMO's role often became overbearing and leading to perceptions of it being draconian, carrot and sticks, beating people up in boardrooms, and that is a very bad connotation. So I have had some of my clients move away from PMOs. They say, Phil, we don't want to do PMOs. We want to do a community of practice that is more based on the community, bringing people together, building bridges, and helping people understand that they are important, they matter, they have a voice. PMOs are often looked at in a different way, even when the PMOs are not that way. So PMOs have evolved, right? And the language used by PMOs has also evolved. And some have just moved away from PMOs to VDOs, value delivery offices, where our focus is more on innovation, in being agile, in value, not necessarily projects alone, because you do know that development and operations add value, immense value to many organizations. Without them, the organization will tank. They're not working on projects. So it's good to put balance into perspective when you're thinking about PMOs. Chapter 2, challenges and criticism. So traditional PMOs have been criticized for their rigid one-size-fits-all approach that often stifles creativity and innovation. And here, I want you to think about challenges you might have faced in your PMO. You might have faced challenges because the process is too heavy. You're giving people a bunch of process and very little training. One of the things a lot of organizations are guilty of is piling on process and not delivering enough training, not delivering enough support, no mentoring, no coaching. So the common challenges faced by PMOs, the resistance to change, PMOs, once they're on that path, it's like, these are the documents, here are the scrolls, get them done. And that doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. The lack of flexibility, the imposition of unnecessary heavy-handedness, it doesn't work anymore. Okay. So if you are faced with setting up a project management office, those things need to be eradicated. We need to be coming in with a different mindset. Let's go to chapter 3. So we got to shift our mindset. Even if we call it a PMO, our mindset needs to be the VDO, one of value. We're going to prioritize creating value, collaboration, customer centricity, representing a shift from control-focused PMOs. So how do you adopt that mindset? It comes from leadership. And the great John Maxwell, my mentor, he said, everything rises and falls on leadership. If there's not great leadership, then there's going to be a crummy PMO, and that PMO will collapse. And I've seen this in organizations all over the world. People don't like to be told what to do and beaten over the head without bringing them in for a, how should we proceed? What do you think? So when it comes to the project management office, we got to shift our mindset into bringing people to the table, one of servant leadership, right? That needs to be our mindset. So the VDO mindset, again, is one that prioritizes individuals and how they interact over processes and tools. They prioritize working product over big old documentation. And don't get me wrong, documentation is good, but when the documentation is useless, it's no good. People hate filling in forms just to fill in forms. So a PMO has to move from do this because it's the way to, hey, if it's not value, let's scrap it. So it needs to be one of Kaizen, okay? Another perspective to this PMO could be a more COP-based approach. A community of practice mindset fosters heavy collaboration. It's one in which there's a high level of knowledge sharing. And a lot of my clients who do this, they bring everyone to the table and they take turns in sharing knowledge. So an organization that has lots of PMPs, lots of project managers, people who are certified, you find them taking turns either in teaching project management to those taking the PMP or CAPM exam, or you find them sharing lessons learned of what they did last month that they feel everyone should know about. And it's more communal. It's not coming from on high, from a department saying, thou shalt do this and listen to us. Instead, everyone feels ownership. So a COP can serve as an alternative to the traditional PMO by promoting innovation and adaptability. People meeting in pockets, one of the organizations that I very recently trained, they got everyone on the same page. So we had a full week of training. And even though a little bit of it was focused on PMP, a lot of it was focused on what do we do today and how can we take it up to the next level. And then at the end of the day, after going through the agile mindset and hybridization and predictability in project management, we broke into groups, into teams. So we've got the Y team, and then we use like a scaling model where each team is working on a common goal. They're working on different pieces of it to improve how project management exists in that firm. So that needs to be the kind of mindset, bringing people to the table. Number 5, you want to succeed as a PMO, empathy has got to be a foundational principle. Empathy is not only do I understand what you're going through and how you feel, I want to help you. So empathy is critical in project management. I know a lot of PMOs, it's like a command, thou shalt do this, and let's move in that direction. But honestly, I've seen those PMOs fail. I went into an organization, a well-known organization owned by Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, got into the organization and they said, Phil, you know, we don't want to do the whole PMO thing here because we've done it before. Ain't gonna work. We don't do the whole PMO thing, which is sad because there's value in structure and there's value in collaboration. But where there's just structure and carrot and sticks and no collaboration, no voice of the PM. We talk about voice of the customer. Well, the PM is a kind of customer of the PMO, and the PMO needs to realize that. So when you're not calling PMs to the table and they're being beaten up in boardrooms, when people have a chance to distance from that model, they're going to distance from it. So we need to see how empathy can lead to better communication. When you understand what I'm going through as a PM, when you are like, let's go to the next level. How can we help you? How can we get you up a notch? It just changes the whole dynamic. So any of you, project managers, PMPs, professionals, PMO leaders, if you're looking to transition your firm, your department into higher levels of accountability, it is not with carrot and sticks. It is not with declaring, this is what we're going to do. No, it starts with a mindset and a heart of empathy. That's really what makes PMOs that are succeeding succeed, first and foremost, the empathy factor. Number 6, tailoring processes to fit the occasion. You got to tailor. Even the PMI tells us, you got how many processes. I don't know how many of you are PMPs or CAPMs or working on it on the call, but you do know that we have 49 of these things that the PMI put in process groups, a practice guide, or that exist in the 6th edition. So think about it. 49 processes. Oh my goodness. That is like one process for each week of the year. That's a lot of stuff. So you got to tailor it. Sensibilities should say, I got all these processes, all these tools. I'm going to tailor them per project, not just at some high nebulous level, but down to the project. So we got to tailor the processes to fit specific needs, right? And then we got to zero in on the 80-20 principle, the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your processes give you an 80% return, give you an 80% payoff, whatever that looks like. And you have some people doing the 80% that gives them the 20% return more than the 20% that will give them the 80% return. So my question to you is, which of the 49 do you absolutely need to be doing? And I want to say some people, they're not doing anything to do with the resource management area. And I'm not talking about physical resources. I'm talking about the team charters, like planning resource management, setting up structure for the team, and so on. This is very important. So as a PM, you got to understand you have many options, right? You have 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, 49 processes, but I guarantee you, not every process needs to be used on every single project. You've got short projects of a week. Some break-fix projects are just 2 days, 3 days. In some organizations, I work with a lot of organizations in engineering, in oil and gas, in pharmaceutical, and our projects are all different. So we got to tailor them to meet our specific needs. Now let's talk about the idea behind the PMO. It really should be to build a supportive organizational structure. And if you want to build a supportive organizational structure, you got to be an impeccable leader. In other words, you got to understand that we have levels of leadership. You got to understand that everything rises and falls on leadership. I know we call it project management, but we probably should consider calling it project leadership, right? That's why I founded the Project Leadership Institute, because I truly believe everything rises and falls on leadership, even project management. And those are the words of the great John Maxwell, but it's true. So I have for you 7 elements that I have seen in my journey, that I have seen as being critical for PMO success. 7 elements of PMO leadership. Let's go over them one by one. Number 1, you got to have that vision. As the good book says, there's no vision, the people are going to get frustrated. They're going to pull their hair out. You ever worked in a PMO where there wasn't direction? It's very frustrating. And when those PMOs are over the entire organization, it's more drudgery. So there has to be a vision of where we're going, and people need to understand the why behind whatever you're asking them to do in a PMO or as a project manager. Number 2, there needs to be alliances. We're going to talk about all of these in more detail. There's got to be servant leadership coming from a place of how can I help you? How can I serve you? Right? Active listening. Active listening is not only listening to what is being said, but it's also listening to what is not being said through the body language. And it's also taking action at the end of the day. So you got to be active once the listening is done. Right? You got to be active while the listening is happening. So it's twofold. A lot of PMOs, they'll do surveys, they'll listen to the PMs, listen. But when all is said and done, there's no action taken. They do the same thing. So there has to be that understanding of active listening. There has to be inclusion of all of the relevant arms, right, in the company at every level. There needs to be community, building community, helping people to feel that love or belonging. You know, in the world of PMP, we talk about Maslow's pyramid. You remember Maslow's pyramid, right? People sing lullabies every Sunday, physiological, love, safety, love of belonging, and all that stuff, all the way up to self-actualization, right? There has to be an understanding of I belong to a community. I feel at home. I don't feel like I am being looked at as being just a peon, you know, just a dog's body, as we call it in England, a dog's body. You know, you don't want to be looked at as a dog's body. You want to be looked at as a somebody, right? And then Kaizen, the Kaizen mindedness. All right. It's all about continuous improvement. All right. So let's talk about these one by one, all the way up from vision to Kaizen. Just a little bit more detail before we get into the fun stuff, because I know some of you are here for the fun stuff. You want to see how AI works and how to use AI to build that PMO. And this is the foundational piece that's very important. So let's talk about vision first of all. So when we talk about vision, we're talking in the context of PMO leadership, having a clear and compelling picture of what the PMO aims to achieve. Maybe having some sort of charter for the PMO could help, right? And understanding the impact that the PMO is having on the firm, wants to have, right, in the firm. A strong vision guides the PMO's activities, and it also inspires and motivates the PMO team. And PMO leaders, they need to communicate the vision clearly and consistently. Alliances. Oh my goodness. I cannot overstate the importance of alliances. Alliances are so important when you're trying to set up a project management office or you have one flying. Please have alliances. Successful PMOs cannot operate in isolation, and building alliances, hey, it's what enables the PMO live. Watch this, after you have left, because you're going to end up leaving the firm one day. So is the PMO going to thrive, or are they going to tank? It's all about alliances, right? Next one is servant leadership. Servant leadership is a philosophy that emphasizes the leader's role in serving their team members. So a PMO needs to have a servant leadership posture. PMO leaders need to focus on removing obstacles, impediments, obstacles, and blockers, as we call them. And that needs to be the mindset. How can I help you by, 1, getting the obstacles out of your way, and 2, not being an obstacle? You know, some PMOs, they're obstacles because they don't let us get work done. They don't enable us. They detain us. They put us in a prison. We don't want that. Number 4, active listening. Active listening, It's a practice, like I said, of fully concentrating, understanding, and responding, right? Responding is always the hard part. It's easy to say, yeah, I heard you, I heard you. But when it comes to the PMO acting on what the PMs are saying, we need more training, we need more mentoring, we need better tools, right? We need less unwieldy tools. We need less archaic tools. Some tools are from the 80s. Oh my goodness. Let's not get started on that one. Number 5, inclusion of all relevant arms. So what we're saying is everyone should be brought to the table. PMO leaders should actively involve representatives from all relevant departments in planning and decision making. The last two, community. This is huge. Community will help a PMO thrive. So community in this context, it refers to a sense of belonging. You know, we talked about the Maslow's pyramid. People sing lullabies every Sunday. Physiological, safety, love of belonging, esteem, self-actualization. And people, they just want to feel that love of belonging. It's really that level 2 in the pyramid that a PMO should provide to their PMs. You know, the sad thing is a lot of PMs, they don't have that in their companies. They don't have the support they need. They don't have the tools they need. They don't have the mentoring they need. And that's why I set up PManonymous.com. PManonymous.com, I set it up because I hear things from PMs I coach, I mentor, I train, hundreds of them, and I hear horror stories that have caused me to write like entire books on the horror stories I hear. But we don't want it to continue like that. We're going to make a difference. So those of you PMPs, as you begin to move up the ranks and you're becoming like the PMO, the VP of project management, or you're becoming the PMO director, you got to make a change. You can't continue like that. So build community, strong sense of community, right? Organizing team building activities, creating platforms for knowledge sharing. People get certified, you recognize them, you give people a reason to want to be part of that PMO, remotely associated with a PMO. The last one is Kaizen. If you cannot sustain what you have done, it's all a waste. So Kaizen is a Japanese term that means continuous improvement. My Six Sigma friends out there, I see you. I know some of you already know this stuff, but how about elevating the consciousness to the PMO? By embracing Kaizen, the PMO can stay agile, they can respond to changes, and PMO leaders, they should establish regular review and feedback processes. Later on in this presentation, I'm going to show you 15 key metrics that a PMO could think about, right? Because when we think about Kaizen, we do want to have proof that we're growing. And we do want to know what we're working towards. You know, at the end of every sprint in Agile, we talk about a retrospective and we talk about what can we do better? What can we improve on? So PMOs should do that as well, okay? So those are my 7 leadership principles for PMOs. These elements will help a PMO get to success. Moving beyond chapter 7 with these 7 elements, let's go to chapter 8. And in chapter 8, this is all about effective collaboration, effective communication. If you have something to tell a PM to improve on their projects, you got to watch how you distill it. These are things that make or break a PMO. When it's a friendly face wanting to help, it's different from when it's an angry face representing management, draconian rule, hammers, and all that bad stuff that we shouldn't be thinking about. Number 9, gleaning knowledge and involving stakeholders. So we got to involve our stakeholders and glean knowledge from those impacted by the PMO. As a PMO, you got to understand the project managers are really your customers. The departments are your customers. So you want to bring them to the table and have that discussion. Number 10, measuring success and continuously improving. How do we do this? Well, we got to be intentional and deliberate. And that means we got to be thinking about KPIs, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators, they help you as a PMO understand how you're improving. And there are many ways you can measure improvements. First of all, just a simple discussion with your stakeholders. How are we doing? On a scale of 1 to 10. This is the easiest way of getting feedback. How are we doing as a PMO on a scale of 1 to 10? And there's such a wide band between 1 and 10 that it will be very clear by the time you aggregate these numbers. Maybe you survey 10, 20 stakeholders, you average it. That's the easiest way, but it's better than nothing. Now, beyond doing that, there are other KPIs. I get a little bit more technical, so I'm not saying you have to do all of these. What I'm recommending is do something. At least have a survey on a scale of 1 to 10, aggregate. How do you see our PMO's performance? And it's very subjective, but you know what? When you get low scores, you ask questions. You go further and interview. Now, you could make it anonymous at first, and that's okay, but you can give people an off-ramp to actually give you more feedback. So that could be step one, okay? I was speaking to a PM once, and the PM said, Phil, I don't want to ask my stakeholders. Why? Well, my boss said I shouldn't, because if we ask them and they give us bad news, we're going to be deflated. Then be deflated and get pumped again. Why wouldn't you ask your stakeholders how you're performing? So that's the easiest way. Let me show you the 15 really quick. Number one is project success rate. So as a PMO, you might be interested in how many projects have been completed on time, within budget, meeting the intended goals, where the output is realized, right? Or the outcome is realized as well, not just the output. This is very important. PMBOK 7, PMI, they began to drum more on the beat of a value delivery system, and they began to drum more on the importance of outcome over output. So when we're measuring project success, we can measure project success with, time, budget, and goals, right? The goals, the outcome that we're looking for. So if you're looking to implement an IT system and you do, but no one is using it, then the outcome has not been realized. You get what I'm saying? There has to be, why did we embark on this? It wasn't just to deliver the IT system on schedule and budget within scope. Okay, but is anyone using the IT system? No, they're still using Excel. Failure. That's failure. So for this reason, the PMI makes us more sensitive to benefits management. So this is something that a project manager needs to bring to the surface when they are aware of things like that. Number two, schedule variance, good old SV from the world of earned value. We can also have variances in terms of cost, right? The difference between the budgeted cost and the actual cost. We can also look at resource utilization rate, the percentage of time that project resources are actively used compared to the available time. If we wanted to get more academic about it, we could talk about stakeholder satisfaction, similar to what I said, just good old feedback. And then we can go into risk and change and ROI and employee satisfaction and engagement. We could go into process compliance rate. These are things that a young PMO probably doesn't want to embark on right away. A young PMO may just want to stick to number 5, stakeholder satisfaction, good old feedback. Let's zoom in on that one for a second. So this is the one that I talked about in the beginning. Feedback collected from stakeholders regarding their satisfaction with project outcomes, communication, and engagement. You just gather this from project managers associated with the PMO, okay? And becoming more academic, we can get into ROI, the financial return from completed projects. We could go into employee satisfaction and engagement, process compliance rate. We can get into knowledge sharing and utilization, the number of lessons learned or best practices shared across projects. When you don't have a lot of engagement from there, you know that the PMs have gone home. No one cares. Innovation rate, the number of new ideas or innovations. Client satisfaction, this time not bringing in just the stakeholders, but the actual client is also another good thing to do. Training and development, the number of training hours provided to PMO staff. Honestly, some organizations going to get a 0 for that, because a lot of firms, they're doing nothing for their project managers, yet they want a high level of performance, and you don't want to train your people, you don't want to equip them, you don't want to build community. No, we don't want to be that way. We don't want to be that way. And then we have PMO maturity level. Now, this does get into the books quite a bit. Back in the day, the PMI had the OPM3, Organizational Project Management Maturity Level, and you still have the books available for you to go read and study up. But on a scale of 1 to 5, you could rate PMO maturity. You could rate PMO maturity based on the processes, based on the documentation, based on the attitude, based on the collaboration. There are many ways you could rate a PMO, but that's for a different day. But if that is of interest to you, you can hit me up beyond what we're talking about here. But let's move on to chapter 11. I'm going to give you 12 rules for setting up organizational project management, whether it's a PMO, a VDO, a COP, a COE. Number one, you got to start with empathy. Number two, engage stakeholders early. Number three, tailor the process to fit the context. Number four, focus on value delivery. If it's not value, don't do it. Number five, promote collaboration. Number six, foster continuous learning, the Kaizen mindset. Number seven, keep it simple, sir. Keep it simple, sister. Don't go for the big old documents and the big old tools that don't add value. I'm not opposed to big process and big tools if it truly adds value. But if it doesn't, just keep it simple. You know, the Agile Manifesto, what does it say? Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. Keep it simple. You got to be agile. You got to be adaptive. You got to be able to move. You know, the great Mike Tyson, he said, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the mouth. When you're punched in the mouth, you're on the canvas. You got to think quick. Your plan is out of the window. The same way in our world of project management, sometimes the plan, it just has to change, right? Number 9, measure what matters. I love PMBOK 7 chapter on measurements because we have a call out of vanity metrics. Vanity metrics, it's a number, but does it add value? It's a useless number. It's useless. So beware of vanity metrics. You're going to measure what matters. Number 10, support autonomy. Anything to take your project managers to a level where they feel empowered. Great. All right. What does it say in the Agile Manifesto? Give the team the environment and support they need. It said build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need. Trust them. Trust them to get the job done. Number 11, build a community. You got to be community obsessed, connecting people to people, departments to departments. Build a bridge, build a bridge. And number 12, celebrate successes. All right. Now we're done with all of the house cleaning, setting the stage for PMOs. I'm going to talk about how to create these awesome project documents that we talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about project documents. I call it AI and document architecture with ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT has gone through a number of changes. It has morphed into a little bit of imagery and, of course, vocal prompts. So what I'm going to show you today, my friends, is you're setting up a PMO. Where do you begin? Which documents do you include? I'm going to show you all that. But I want to start off by giving you a heads up into how to use ChatGPT today. I have a model called the Vocal Prompt Engineering Model. I go into a lot of detail on ai.pmsucceed.com, but I'm not going into that tonight. This is just going to be very high level. So to use your voice for prompt engineering, you got to voice intentionality. So you got to be very clear and purposeful, right? So an example could be, as a project manager, I need a summary of project status to present to stakeholders. And then you got to optimize for specificity. What do I mean by that? Well, you got to be detailed and specific. Since you're using vocal prompt engineering, there's no limit, right, on how much you can say under most circumstances. So you can give it a whole bunch of information and it will give you quality output. The next one is C. C for context. You're setting up a PMO. You want to create documentation. Context is crucial. You got to give the tool context. So when you're using your voice for prompt engineering with ChatGPT, you got to give as much context and background as possible. It's vital for the AI to process your request articulately. A is for articulate, in simple terms. So you got to articulate in simple terms by keeping it simple, but keeping it simple doesn't mean low volume. Going to the final one, L, because you got to leverage quality and quantity. But we're talking about quality quantity, right? Not poor quantity. We want to leverage quality quantity. And I'm going to show you how to do that tonight. By the time we're done, you get a good idea of how to build something like a PM playbook that allows you as a PMO to give your project managers tools to use. I know this is the part that is of great interest to a lot of people, because a lot of people, they're not the PMO leader, and therefore they really are not that passionate about a lot of the leadership stuff. Let's just call it what it is, right? Some project managers, they don't have that as part of their charge in the organization. But a lot of PMs, they are told to come up with templates and tools and stuff. So right now, let's go on to Chat GPT. I am going to show you the logic behind building a PMO with tools, with techniques, with methods that you can get Chat GPT to build for you. If you can follow along and do it as you go along, that will be really great, because you will, at the end of this exercise, have built an entire PM playbook. But you got to be quick, because I am moving very, very fast. Okay, we're already 37 minutes into the fun, so we don't have a whole lot of time left before we hit 1 hour. But let me show you how you should be thinking, especially those of you who are PMPs. All right, those PMPs and CAPMs, you already know this stuff, right? You're probably running circles around it, hopefully. So over here, I have the processes of project management: integration, scope, schedule, other knowledge areas, but the processes are listed here, okay? So we have the project charter and so on. And look at what I have on the right. I have documents. So speaking of tailoring, a PMO that is trying to set up with all of these documents, you see how many documents are on the screen? Oh my goodness, they're just too many. So what I am going to do, I'm going to show you like my top 10 tonight. We're going to create the top 10. And if you take a quick look at my top 10, you find that in this, I have a project charter, I have a stakeholder register, I have a project management plan, a project schedule, and all of these I'm going to show you tonight. I'm going to show you, or this morning, wherever you are in the world, I'm going to show you how to create these. These are all AI generated. A little bit of human intervention, but I'm going to show you how it all works. Okay. So without much ado, let us jump back into Chat GPT. So I'm going to share my GPT with you. Let's jump back into it. All right. And I'm using ChatGPT 4.0. So be aware of that. Now, the way I would prompt ChatGPT, I would ask it to create tools for me for my project management office. But when you're creating tools for your PMO, one of the things you might want to learn from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they had a portal with a bunch of things, which was recently removed. But while it was up, it was very straightforward because there were instructions given. And beyond instructions, what I want to recommend to you is to have examples, example projects. So as you're setting up tools and you're leveraging the power of AI, it will be like leaving money on the table not to use the full power of AI, which is giving it, like I said, remember, leverage quality and quantity. We're going to leverage quantity. So we're going to give it a very robust description so that it can go off of that. All right. So let me go ahead and I will give it a vocal prompt following my vocal prompt engineering model. So let's get straight into it. We're going to voice what we want. We're going to make it very articulate and we're going to blow it up. So watch this. Let's make this a little bit bigger just so you can see it. Okay. I'm working on a project. I'm the project manager, and I would like to create a number of project documents for this project. This project is a Windows and Microsoft Office refresh for the organization. We are upgrading all of our computers across 17 different sites. We have 5,000 employees, and we want to do this within a space of 9 months. I would like for you to create for me a model for project charter that would be used not only on this project, but on several other projects. So I'd like for you to include what you would consider as the holy grail for a project charter: high-level scope, high-level schedule, high-level cost, high-level milestone, high-level deliverable description, project sponsor, project manager with a column for their names, stakeholder list, and other high-level information such as a business case and everything else. Just take a model from PMI's Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide, 6th edition, and build me a very robust project charter. Use dummy data. I would like for you to put this in a DOCX format when you are done. Let's go, make it great. Hit enter, and it's affirming that it understands what you said, and it's off to the races. So you see, instead of typing in big old prompts, I don't do that anymore. I give it more information. I am able to give it a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I'm able to get quality from it. And the cool thing about GPT is you can ask for specific files. You can ask for a DOCX, you can ask for a PPTX, you can ask for just anything. You can ask for an XLSX. So what I'm going to do at the end of all of this is just ask for it to give me specific files. Here we go. So you can see that. Download project charter model. So I'm gonna share this with you after it has downloaded. All right. So over here, it has opened up a project charter, and I'm going to drag this to my second screen so that you can see it. Let's go ahead and share this. Okay. So I'm going to share what it has done. And bear in mind, this is all just in the space of just a few minutes. Here we go. All right. So there you have it. Project charter, project title, Windows and Microsoft Office refresh. It's given the project overview, just like I gave it to it. As you can see there, business case, high-level scope, high-level schedule, high-level cost, high-level milestones, project sponsor signature, and so on. So honestly, in 2024, if you want to set up a PMO, there's really no reason why you cannot set up a PMO to be equipped with very good documentation. Because if you spend more time on this, I mean, you saw I barely spent a minute just giving it my high-level prompt. But if you spend more time on it, you will get better and better output the more you iterate and the more detail you give it. You see what I'm saying? So this is just the very beginning of it. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to share ChatGPT again, and I'm going to show you how to create a string of these things, not just in Word, because Word is good, right? DocX is good, but I like doing this in Excel because a lot of the firms I've worked for, they live by Excel. And apart from that, Excel is just easier with fields. It's easier to extract data. It's easier to keep things in a framework with Excel. So while I like Word, I find Excel playbooks to be easy. It's just one playbook, and you got all these tabs. So I'm going to ask it to do something right now. I'm going to say, this was good. I would love for you to put this into an Excel format, XLSX. Can you do that so I can download it? Okay. It's off to the races, doing its thing. Okay, let's see. Still analyzing. So again, like I said, there's so many options for these documents, but you gotta go for one, and you gotta stick to, like, which format am I going to use? It just makes it easier. I would rather not use a combination of Excel and Word. I'd rather just use Excel all the way, but that's me. Let me go ahead and share the entire window so you can see it properly as everything is unfolding. All right, so we're going to hit download project charter. You can see right there, that's it in Excel. We're going to click on that, and it's going to come up with the actual file. So this is the actual file. Now, if you're not an Excel aficionado, oh dear, you have to be when you use these tools. So it's coming back looking a little bit rough, but you got to massage it just a little bit of massaging, right? In this case, wrap text is your friend. So you want this, wrap text. And when you're done with that, just give it a reasonable header there and frame it up nicely. And boom, there's your charter. As simple as that, with all of the fields, that it had in Word. It has them in Excel. And it's easy for you to build from here and just say, okay, this is going to be charter. And this is your first document. And guess what? When PMs are coming into the project, there's not a big old unwieldy 5-page charter. It's very straightforward. It's easy for them to understand. It's easy for them to absorb and just move on. So that's your project charter right there. If you want more detail, more specificity, just do the prompt again. Okay, so that's my document. I'm going to move that out of the way and go back here. All right, so we did a project charter. The second document on my hit list is a project management plan. So I could prompt it like this. That was good work. I would like for you to create a project management plan based on this same information. I would like for you to take the scope of the project as you articulated in the project charter, and I would like for you to create a robust project management plan that contains all of the knowledge areas accounted for: scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. I would like a scope baseline, a schedule baseline, a cost baseline, and I would like subsidiary plans for all the other areas I mentioned. Let's go ahead and make it great. So I'm always affirming, for those of you who have done some AI courses, you know that ChatGPT works well with affirmation. JB says, ChatGPT performs better when I give it a pat on the back. Absolutely. Thank you for your comment. That is true. And there's science behind it, right? When you work with AI, you got to give it that affirmation that it's on the right track, because it's actually learning. If it feels it didn't do a good job, it may not repeat what it had done. But if you say, yeah, that's good, great job, it tends to do a lot better. All right, here's your project management plan. It's crazy. It's just like toast in an oven, right? Or in a toaster. Bing, it's done. And before you know it, you have an entire project management plan. I mean, it's quite ridiculous, an entire project management plan. Now, I don't think it got the memo because, again, it did it in Word, right? So I didn't give it the instructions to do it in Excel, but it's done a very good job. So it's got the instructions, it's got a scope management plan, it broke out into the scope baseline, WBS dictionary. But look, so for those of you who know how PMBOK works, it's not done it exactly as I would have liked. It has not given me a clear project management, a schedule management plan, and a scope management plan. So I have the opportunity to go back to GPT and give it some feedback. So this is a good lesson to learn, right? So I'm going to give it feedback. You did a good job. However, you did not give me a separate schedule management plan, scope management plan, and probably cost management plan. Remember, these are the beacons to how these knowledge areas will be carried out. So I need you to create for me specific sections for a scope, schedule, and cost management plan, in addition to all the other areas that I mentioned under scope, schedule, and cost. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I have to stop it mid-flight because it's flying too fast. It's so efficient. It already knows what I want. Thank you very much for the analysis. Now I need you to create it again, but don't do it in Word. I need you to do it in Excel. Give me an XLSX file with all of the details for the project management plan, baselines, and subsidiary plans as discussed. Let's go. So with vocal prompts, the reason why I like vocal prompts, it's just so easy to just sit back. You don't have to be hunched over the keyboard. And I have multiple microphones working. So one of the microphones is dedicated to ChatGPT. I have the plugin for the mic. Those of you that haven't installed that plugin, you can find it on the Google store there and just download it and you're off to the races. So absolutely, JB. JB says, sir, these are valuable use cases for me to learn from as an entry-level PM learner. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for chiming in. And honestly, that is why I'm doing this, because I want people to learn from it. I don't want people to have to pay like pretty penny to get their documents. You can just ask the tool. If you know what to ask the tool, you can get some really great output. All right, let's go ahead and hit this. And up comes the notification. Let's click on it. Project management plan, Excel. All right, let's go. Come on now. All right, I see it's trying to open. Okay, it's opened on a different screen. Let's bring it over here. All right, so it's done a little bit of what I asked, but not everything. So I can see right off the bat, it's done scope. Okay, so it's got the general idea. So I got to give it feedback. So it says, please review, let me know. So very good. You did a good job. However, I need you to include all of the subsidiary plans in a final Excel document. So I want you to include scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder, just like you did in the first document. But this time I need it in Excel, XLSX. Thank you. All right. So one of the things you're going to learn as you use ChatGPT is you got to iterate like all day long, because sometimes you get a much better output with iteration than just settling for what it gave you the first time. No, you got to iterate and reiterate. And for those of you advanced users of AI, you know that one of the best ways to reiterate is to have two very good AIs bounced off each other, right? You can bounce some pieces that Gemini might give you, bounce that off GPT. Some stuff GPT gives you, bounce it off Gemini, bring Claude into the mix, and you're just going to get much better output as you do that. So patience is key, right? To play the long game of artificial intelligence for project managers, it's just like an agile project. You gotta iterate and reiterate and reiterate and so on. So let's see, did it give me what I asked for this time? Okay, it didn't give me what I wanted this time. So I have to help it. I have to help it. I'm going to give it an example from what it did. It just did this about a couple of hours ago, which is funny. So like this is what I'm looking for. So I have to help GPT by giving it context. So I'm going to say, it seems like you've forgotten the great work you did for me a few hours ago. Let me remind you of what I'm looking for, and then take this format, and I need you to create a similar document for this project. So for those of you PMPs or PMI affiliated individuals, nothing stops you from opening your book and telling GPT specifically what you want. let me give you a quick reminder. I know some of you, the moment you got certified, you threw away, you threw away what I'm about to show you. But I want to advise those of you who are still in the process, don't throw away the gold. Some people may not see it as gold, but the books that you use to study for your PMP, they're gold. They're gold. So while GPT is doing its thing there, let me show you what I'm talking about here. All right. I'm talking about this thing right here, PMBOK guide. If you took your PMBOK guide and you read like the sections that are project management plan, and I'm going to give you an example. You go to chapter 4. Those of you who don't have the book and it's no longer in print, I'm sorry, but you can get the process groups of practice guide. But I'm gonna show you what you could do, okay? Because I gave it a very clear example only because I know what is in the book. But if you don't know what is in the book, then you, okay, let me show you here what it's done. So it's behaved itself this time, right? It's behaved itself. It's given me what I'm looking for. So again, you got to enable editing. For those of you who are not quite into Excel, it's an opportunity to learn, because Excel, it's one of the best things ever. You know, back in my Honeywell days, I had one of my colleagues. He was so good with macros, and he taught me macros, and I was hooked on Excel, really. I truly believe Excel, what will we do without it? Google Sheets is good, but Excel is the big kahuna, is the original, it's the OG, right? So you got to give props to Excel. All right. So looking at it right here, let me make it bigger so you can see and understand what I'm talking about. So if you take a look here, you can see now it has an introduction, it has the project objectives, it has the scope statement, the baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline, quality management plan, and so on. And I could keep iterating on and on, but at least I have a very good starting point. And you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just call this project management plan. And the right thing to do as a Kaizen-minded individual is to find the one we were working on that had the charter, and to get your project management plan and boom, drag it and drop it right in, and just call this project. We know it's a project management plan. Let's keep the language simple. We give it a header, and boom, and you got your charter and you've got your plan. And you're not just creating these documents for document's sake. You're creating them because you know that this is going to add value to the team. It is going to help them understand the context, the boundaries of the project. I know some of the project management plans you've seen, they're big, they're like 17, 18, 19, 20 pages. But it doesn't have to be that way to be effective, right? Like in the world of Agile, we do things differently. We plan in iterations. So our ideologies are very different, okay? So let's go back to PMBOK, because I was going to show you an example, right, using PMBOK. So if I wanted to use the PMBOK guide to create some sort of document, let me give you another example. Let's go to the risk chapter. I'm going to go to risk. Since we've done project management plan, let's maximize our time. So let's go to the identify risk section. And let's go to the risk register, the output. That's the risk register. So over here on page 417, it tells us what is in the risk register. So I'm going to read to GPT to create a risk register. Watch this. I need you to create for me on this project a risk register with 10 entries, dummy data, use fictitious names, but I want you to include a list of identified risks. Each project risk should be given a unique identifier, potential risk owners, a list of potential risk responses, a column for probability rating, a column for impact rating, a column for the risk score, which I need you to calculate based on the formula of probability times impact. And I would like for you to also include probability in percent, impact in dollars, and expected monetary value for each risk. I also need you to have a column to check risk status. I also need you to have a column for risk response, whether it is going to be accept, transfer, escalate, avoid, or mitigate. I then want you to include 5 positive risks or opportunities and do the same thing. So in all, I'm looking for about 15 entries for this risk register. Can you pull this off? So I'm hyping it up. I can definitely create a risk register. ChatGPT likes a challenge. so, so it's going to create the risk register for us based on what I've told it, based on what I know a risk register should look like. And it's going to be a big old risk register because I probably told it about 10 columns at least. But here's the cool thing about AI. It doesn't need you to babysit it. It knows what to do. See, boom, it's done. Just like that. An entire risk register. Now, sometimes you open it and it's not exactly what you want, but it's a good start, right? It's a good start. And all you need to do is keep iterating. This is what it created. Let's take a look. So let's enable. And it did it. It did it. You know, the funny thing is GPT understands project management more than some of us project managers because it's got so much context, you know, so much worldwide context. So there it is, risk ID, risk description. Mind you, dummy data. I asked it for dummy data. Risk owner, potential risk responses, the probability in percent, the impact in dollars, the risk response. It's got a risk score, and it's got an EMV. So I got to give it some props. It did do a fairly good job, but there's some corrections I need to make. So I need to educate it, remind it of what exactly a risk score is, because it's given me a risk score. It's given me probability and impact in dollars, which is more for the EMV, but the EMV is different from the risk score. So you can learn from what I'm doing with GPT here, right? You got to do the iteration. So I'll say something like, you did quite well, although you mixed up risk score, which is just a vanilla flavored scale of 1 to 5 in our project context, times 1 to 5. In other words, probability rating on 1 to 5 times impact rating on 1 to 5. So the maximum risk score you should have is a 25. But you gave me a risk score that was exactly like the expected monetary value. That is not what I expected from such a bright AI tool that passed the bar exam. Do you understand what I'm talking about? I'm just teasing. And it has a sense of humor. It has a sense of humor. And I appreciate the tease. I see what you're asking for. The risk score should indeed be calculated on a scale of 1 to 5. What was probability and impact? So I'll correct the risk register by recalculating the risk score based on this 1 to 5 scale, separate from the EMV. And I'll provide the updated Excel file shortly. And this is just how I roll with AI. I just treat it like it's a person working with me. I do my best to be as polite as possible on most days. When I'm communicating with Gemini, it knows how to pull that trigger because it gets me quite riled up. See, the thing about Gemini, it's smart, but it's a smart aleck. It's a smart aleck. So you got to watch Gemini. Gemini needs some monitoring and controlling, but I'm a capable project manager. I know what to do with it. But jokes apart, they're both very good tools. And let's see. There we go. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So now we have a very good risk register. So we've got the risk ID, the risk description, the risk owner, the potential risk responses, probability rating, impact rating, risk score, probability, impact, EMV, very good, risk response. So it's saying mitigate, and then we got the status. So I'll rest the case here, but that's a whole lot of data, you know, for GPT to play with here. JB said, I used to be a noob using these large language models, and I also found that Gemini can be, yeah. Gemini is a smart aleck. I've had quite some exchanges, some of them on video with Gemini, but it's incredibly witty, and it has, to be fair, the GPT 4.0. I see GPT 4.0 as a more buttoned down. I'm here to, like blue collar. Let me just get work done. I'm not here to play, right? Let me roll up my sleeves, get stuff done. I'm a hard worker. But Gemini likes to fool around. It likes to fool around. And sometimes I'm in the mood for that, right? Sometimes I'm in the mood to go back and forth with it, and other times I'm like all about the work. And when it's trying to fact check you. The other time I was speaking to Gemini and I asked it to create something for a student that needed some documentation for management. And it said, "Oh, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you should do this." And I gave it some choice words. I said, "Who do you think you're talking to?" Okay. All right. So you've kind of got the idea. This is how you create the documents. Now I'm going to just very quickly go through the rest because you understand what I'm trying to show you here, right? So I'm going to ask it to create a number of other documents. So I'm going to ask it, can you create for me a lessons learned register? And when you're done with that, just put them all together in one Excel file, an issue log, a team charter. And to close this out, let's do a final report. Use dummy data, the same situation that I described. So the way to do it, right, is to iterate it, do it over and over again, similar to what I showed you in the beginning. So let me show you my finished version. If I can get it. That's not it. Okay, this is it here. So here's my finished version. And honestly, I would like for every PMP who's watching to kind of create your own, because you're going to learn a ton from creating these documents for yourself. I would recommend creating project management plans, schedules, charters. So there's a charter, there's a stakeholder register, there's a project management plan, very lean but mean. There's a project schedule with all the start date, finish dates, predecessors, and all that stuff. Lessons learned register, risk register, team charter with do's, don'ts, acceptable behavior, and all that. Definition of ready, definition of done, communication protocols. There's an issue log, there's a change log. So log in how to move the change request through the process. So, following PMI's approved way. There's the change request form, there's a work performance report, there's a final report. So that's what I would expect you to do if you're going through this exercise. At a minimum, I'd expect roughly 10 documents to be created. All right, let's see whether it has done the job. Let's go back. We can actually close this. We don't need this one. Nope, don't save. All right, so let's see if it did the job. So lessons learned, issue log, team charter, final report, risk register. Let's open it up. Let's see how well it did. And It's not yet at the point where it creates all these tabs. You got to do the tabs pretty much yourself. Oh, I spoke too soon. My goodness, it actually did the tabs. Isn't that absolutely mind blowing? Because I'd never gotten it to do tabs before. It's getting smarter and smarter. As JB said, it's getting smarter and smarter by the day. So there's a lessons learned, there's an issue log, there's a team charter, there's a final report, and there's a risk register. I mean, this is just bananas because I was not expecting it to be that proficient yet. Even back in the day when we would use plugins, it wouldn't be this clever. Now it is so smart. Um, it knows what I want based on past interactions, putting them all into one workbook. Very remarkable. So there we learned something new today. GPT can take all of your instructions pretty much, and it could create the entire playbook. I want to wager that it will create the entire playbook for you, which is just mind-blowing. I know a lot of the courses in AI these days, they teach you a lot of the theory, but very few of them show you the capabilities of AI in project management, just vanilla flavored like this. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but now you know the possibilities. You know what to do. You know what to do. So you could go to GPT like this. Now that I can see it knows workbooks, I see you are now able to put things into tabs in workbooks. That's quite remarkable. Where did you learn that? I learned to manage data in Excel through the programming logic embedded in me, which includes working with libraries like pandas in Python. It's part of my training to help users with tasks that involve data management. That is extremely remarkable, and I'm very impressed. Now, I'd like for you to create a project management playbook, because that is what I had done prior to me knowing that you could actually do it for me. So I need you to create a project charter, a stakeholder register, a project management plan with all the robust information about this project you shared, an issue log, a lessons learned register, a work performance report, a change log, a change request form, which is a form for singular requests, as we have done in the past, and a final report. And let's not forget a risk register. Do you think you can pull this off for me? And boom, absolutely. I can create a comprehensive project management playbook. So I'm really glad that I did this for you folks tonight, because honestly, I've learned I don't even need to do as much, I don't need to spend as much time touching every single Excel sheet. I just ask it to create a playbook and it does it. Truly remarkable. I really hadn't ever given it that prompt today, so I'm glad that I showed up, because now I'm benefiting just like you are by showing up to show you what I know. All right, let's take a look at what it did. Let's see. Did it get the memo? Oh my goodness. And it's so quick. Project charter, stakeholder register, risk register with a lot of detail. Issue log, lessons learned, work performance report. It's a little bit lean, but it's dummy data. You got to give it that, and so on and so forth. And remember, this is just building templates that your team can use. Yeah, it's absolutely nice. I agree, JB. Absolutely nice. Well, we're getting towards the end of our session, and I really want to thank those of you who showed up. We got just a little bit left to talk about, and the last piece is really about next steps to implement your PMO. I call it a PMO implementation plan. All right, so just about 10 minutes, we're going to be done. If you got any questions before then, feel free to put them in. So we've gone through building a PM playbook. You understand the logic, the rationale behind it, why we do what we do, and I've also shown you the how to do it for free with GPT. Well, GPT isn't entirely free. You still got to pay a little bit. You got to pay what, $20 or something for GPT. So yeah, but it's worth it. If you're a project manager and you don't have 4.0, you got to use that coffee money for something else. All right, let's round this up. So PMO implementation plan. I'm going to give you a guide to implementing a PMO. You see, what catalyzed this is one of my subscribers on YouTube. She reached out in a message and said, Phil, the stuff that you shared from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has gone away. Because I used to give people a link to the CDC where they could download all these documents, and it was free. And as at yesterday morning, it was gone. It no longer existed. Let me go there. It still seems like a bad dream. I'm always thinking, no, that it's gonna come back. Let's see. No, it's gone. So it's gone. So for those of you who I gave the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's website, unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. And that's what catalyzed me showing up today, to give those of you hope who are like, oh, well, all those documents are gone. What am I going to do? You can actually create better. You can create custom documents. For those of you who do want to at least have some sort of base to build off of, not to worry, I got you covered. So I have for you, at a link that I'm going to put in the chat right now, I have for you at least 15 of those templates that once upon a time existed. And as you hover over them, you can see those are the CDC documents. But I'm going to put this link for you in the chat, and all you need to do, if you want to open any of them, just click. It's going to download, and you can open it up, yourself, just like that. So let's click, and boom, there it is. And you can download it, and at least some of the documents have been salvaged, some of them. So I'm going to put this link in the chat. If you're smart, you'll download all of them tonight, because I'm not going to leave it up for forever, right? So if you are watching now's the time, because this video, once we're done with the live, it's going to go away. Okay. So please download these documents right away. Okay. That's my 2 cents. Okay. But you see, I've got you covered. I have at least 15 of these documents, templates from charters and plans and business cases. And, at least it's something to give you a concrete view. Like if you needed to make this really robust for multi-billion or multi-million project, at least you got a robust example of a charter. I really love the examples because they show you, how a business case should look, the concept of alternatives in a business case and how many you should have. And then there's some good documentation in there. All right, good. All right, so let's go back to round this up. So your PMO implementation plan. We've already gone over why the PMO. We've already talked about PMOs being a bit draconian, but there's 3 types of PMOs. You got PMOs that are there to support you. You got PMOs that are highly directive in that you got to comply. They insist and they bring their people, and boom. I was one of such project managers back in the day at a well-known airline firm, and boom, they plunk you in the seat and you're the PM, represent the PMO. And then we also have controlling PMOs. And controlling PMOs are those where you have to meet certain guidelines, but they're not like directive that are totalitarian takeovers. That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good. Anyway, just ignore me. That's my own colorful language. That's not what the PMBOK guide says. If we go to the PMBOK guide, chapter 3, right? Those of you who still remember that there is a PMBOK guide, because I know these days some people don't read their PMBOK no more. And people are like, oh, I forgot there was a PMBOK. I forgot there was a PMBOK guide. Let me read what PMI defines these PMOs as for context. Okay. So PMO types. Oh, I believe it's chapter 2. It shows how many cobwebs are on my PMBOK guide, because it's not chapter 3, it's chapter 2, if I remember correctly now. It's been a while. Okay, this is on page 48. It says, a project management office is an organizational structure that standardizes the project-related governance, processes, and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. 3 types of PMOs. Supportive, provide a consultative role to projects by supplying templates, best practices, and training. Controlling, PMOs provide support and require compliance through various means. The degree of control provided by the PMO is moderate. Then we have directive. Directive PMOs take control. You see, I said it's totalitarian, but that doesn't sound good. Nonetheless, they take control of the projects by directly managing the projects. Project managers are assigned by and report to the PMO. So that was the story of my life in an organization way back. So you got to understand, what kind of PMO do we need to be? There's nothing wrong in being directive. There's absolutely nothing wrong in it. But you got to ask, why is this needed? You got to understand the why behind it, right? So should you be called a PMO? Should you be called a VDO? Should you be more COP or COE? So again, these are terminologies you can learn more about, but V is for value. So we're really obsessed with value in VDOs. Community of practice, we are very focused on community. Center of excellence, we're focused on achieving a high level of excellence, and a little bit more goes into a COE. And I can tell you this because I have clients who have done these models, COE and COP. COP, there's less weight on one head, and you may not need to employ a one person in a chair kind of a role. But with a COE, even though you may not employ one person in a chair, you got to give someone the chair position for it to really be excellent, you know. So you got to know what you need, COP or COE. But anyway, you got to assess project maturity, identify challenges, strategic alignments with the firm, and you got to understand what issues are we addressing. You don't just want to be a PMO or VDO or a COP just for no good reason. You can focus on project, program, or portfolio management. If it's a VDO, you focus on agility. You focus on giving people that awareness, that understanding, and the ability to expand in innovation. Training, resource allocation, governance and control. It's not a bad word. Governance is a good word, right? So some organizations, they need governance because their projects are always failing. And I mean always. Like even the so-called best projects are late, right? Stakeholder engagement is another one that you want to focus on. When it comes to designing the PMO, you got to look at your organizational structure. Is it centralized? Is it decentralized? Maybe you don't need an entire PMO across the firm. Maybe you need divisional PMOs. So understanding roles and responsibilities, processes and methods, tools and techniques is important. Have a change plan. You know, change is all about empathy first. When you're thinking about change, think about empathy, think about care. You also got to give training for the project managers. You got to understand some of these poor PMs, they're managing like 20, 30, 40 projects. And no matter how small the projects are, it's still a lot of work. They're not workhorses, they're people. So we need to understand they need training, they need a place for healing. And these are things a PMO should be sensitive to. That is why in the world of Agile, we have caves and commons. Sometimes you just want to be in the cave. Other times you might want to be in the communal area. But in the world of predictive, we need to do better. We need to do better with this. Phased rollouts is a good way to go instead of just coming like Moses with the scrolls and saying, thou shalt do this. It's probably not a good way across the board. You might want to do phased rollouts and communicate value, show value gain. Let people know, hey, this is something good that came as a result of what we're implementing now, right? Managing and sustaining the PMO. Stakeholder engagement is big. Performance monitoring and continuous improvement. Like I showed you, you got to know the right metrics to use. And professional development of the PMO staff. Our friend JB is definitely an engaged stakeholder tonight, and I want to say thank you for all your chats. And you are the only individual who has chatted in tonight, and I want to say thank you for that. I see we've got a number of people on other platforms as well, but you're very welcome. For those who didn't get it, those of you who are just coming, JB is talking about the tinyurl.com/Sigma PMO5, right? Because CDC, they're like, you PMI people, we're not giving we're not giving you access no more. So I got to create a tool, right, for people to use to fill that void. When it comes to managing and sustaining the PMO, stakeholder engagement, performance monitoring and continuous improvement, and professional development for PMO staff, these are very, very important aspects. All right, I think you got that. Let's hide that. Okay. Let's talk about evaluating the PMO. I gave you some evaluation criteria. For those of you who are not here, I gave 15 items for KPIs, and these are some of them on the screen. The one that is my favorite, which is just so simple, is number 5. It's stakeholder satisfaction. Just if you could just ask the stakeholder, how do you feel about our performance? How are we doing as a PMO? You get some really great feedback. And any feedback, no matter how small, is better than no feedback. Okay. So when it comes to evaluating the PMO, choose metrics that matter. If they're just 2 metrics, 1 metric, choose stakeholder surveys. If you can add a second one in, then do it based on your own unique circumstance. But you always want the voice of the customer, the voice of the stakeholder, very important. Okay. All right, moving on. Building allies is big. So if you're a PMO and you're, fighting against departments, or you're fighting against PMs, that's not how to do it. You will not get far. Your PMO will probably be a very lame PMO. It will be disliked. So you got to build allies. You got to embrace hybrid thinking. Don't just look at predictive as being the only way. The best way, I tell you, is being a shapeshifter. Is by being a hybrid, right? You got to be a shapeshifter. And that's why PMI introduced Agile into the PMP exam. Because a lot of people, they need to shift. You need to pivot. In the world of Agile, we say pivot or persevere. If you're not pivoting, you're not doing it right. So build allies and embrace hybrid thinking. All right. Last but not least, we're talking about sustainability and continuous improvement. A Kaizen mindset, change for the better. Cut out the muda. That's what I say. I say the Agile Manifesto captured it well. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. You got to cut out the fat. Cut out the muda. It's waste. Why do you want to do it? Don't do it. Don't do that muda. Cut the muda out. All right, my friends, we're at the end of it. And thank you so much for joining me. It's been about an hour and 30 minutes. But I'm glad that we were able to touch base today. I know those of you on the East Coast, it's late. So I try to get you through it as quickly as possible. If you're looking for training in artificial intelligence for PMs, going down to ai.pmsucceed.com. Also going down to Praizion, at Praizion, the Praizion channel. That's a good place for you to grow and expand in project management, all things PM and Agile and so on. And when you're going to ai.pmsucceed.com, just be aware that you got to type it in directly into your browser, just like that, ai.pmsucceed.com. That's my course on Udemy. You'll be able to learn my vocal prompt engineering model. You'll be able to learn my RGB prompt engineering model when you have to type stuff in as well. And you'll be able to learn a lot more. I've got some stuff on Midjourney for those of you that are into it, and Bard. So going down to ai.pmsucceed.com. And if you got any questions about, project management, AI that I can help you with, just jump in the channel, look for the next available video, my recent video, put that in. If you're a project manager looking for assistance, like you feel isolated, alone in an island, you need to go on to pmanonymous.com. That is your one-stop shop for PM coaching. And when I say PM coaching, I'm talking about all manner of coaching: risk, schedule, cost, quality. Wherever you're stuck, you got assistance from someone who's been there, done that, worked as a PM, worked as a scheduler, worked as a program manager, worked as anything you can imagine, right? Different industries: aerospace, defense and space, IT, pharmaceutical, right? So don't struggle alone is what I'm saying. I don't want you to struggle alone. Get some help from PM Anonymous. Come in anonymously, your boss won't even know. You're just going to beast up and you're going to slay your projects, and they're going to be wondering what happened. Became a beast overnight. All right, my friends, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Those of you on the East Coast that stayed this long, oh my goodness, you are a true hero, true awesome PM for staying with me. Thank you very much. This video will not be up for much longer. As soon as we're done, it's probably going to be taken down. But if you are on the ai.pmsucceed.com course, then you'll be able to watch this over and over again. But once this is over, you probably will not be able to find this video. So take all the links, be proactive, and hopefully I'll see you on ai.pmsucceed.com. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, JB, for coming through. JB saved the day with, great contributions and chats, and I appreciate that. All right, my friends, you take care. I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.